Thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity to come here for this wonderful occasion. Actually, initially I was wondering whether I would be able to participate because one of the reasons I was coming to America was a court case in Long Island. Court case about our Long Island temple, and I had to give my testimony for that. But then Kuladri Prabhu, who was actually taking care of that court case, at one point, no, actually, Rampad Maharaj, he told me that my testimony won't be needed because certain things were presented in the case, and if I was questioned, I had to tell the truth. And that wouldn't have been in conformity with their statement. So that's why they thought better I don't come. So I was considering that, well, then I won't have to come to America now. But then Shraddhadev Prabhu just kept on insisting, no, I have to come. And via medium of Rohini Nandan Prabhu. So then I said, okay, I'll come. And I felt very happy to be here yesterday for the Ratha Jatra. Previously, I participated in some of the Ratha Jatras in New Orleans, but I think yesterday's were the best so far. And His Holiness Bhira Krishna Maharaj was telling me the reason for that was that there were so many devotees came to participate. So it is the presence of the devotees that make a festival become such a grand success. So anyway, I'm very happy to have this opportunity and today to have here and meet so many devotees, especially so many of my god brothers. Like so many of them, those were we were very close at one time, but nowadays hardly we get any time to even see each other. Like I think we should have more such festivals where Prabhupada disciples can come and get together. And you all can, the second generation Prabhupada's grand disciples, can get the benefit from them. Because Prabhupada disciples are not ordinary persons. Prabhupada is an extraordinary spiritual personality, and those devotees who came to assist Srila Prabhupada in his mission are also not ordinary personalities. They all are very, very special personalities. Prabhupada himself once admitted that all these devotees, especially those who those who came to assist him in his movement, in his propagation of Krishna consciousness movement in the West, they had been sent by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So that means they are also spiritual personalities who came from spiritual domain. They are not just ordinary conditioned souls who just came to become purified. Of course, many of us are ordinary conditioned souls getting the opportunity to become spiritually motivated. But many of the devotees who came forward to assist Srila Prabhupada, they're very, very exalted spiritual personality, just have taken birth in some strategic places like America, Europe, Australia, and their support to spread Krishna consciousness movement, their assistance to Srila Prabhupada is a remarkable achievement, and it's a remarkable phenomena in the history of Krishna consciousness. So here we are to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And personally, I just consider that in the Vedic culture, the celebration takes place just right after the child is born. Then 6 days after, then 1 month after. And this way, the celebration keep on going on. And then comes annual celebration or birthday celebration. Often I think that this 50th anniversary celebration is something like ISKCON's 1 day celebration, or at the most ISKCON's 6 days, uh, which is called Shoshti Puja. So it's the beginning. ISKCON is actually in its infancy. If we look ISKCON as a personality who is just born 50 years ago. And mind you, this movement is meant to be here for 10,000 years to come. So when you look at it, then what is 50 years? And when you look at other spiritual organizations, other religions in this world, then all the prominent religions are more than 1,000 years old. Islam is more than 1,000 years, Christianity is more than 2,000 years, Buddhism is 2,500 years. And so for a spiritual movement, this 50 years is practically the very beginning. That is what we are actually celebrating. And so that way we have to see that ISKCON is in its infancy. And we have the responsibility. We means we, the followers of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada actually made that point very clearly. Few days before Srila Prabhupada left the planet, two very important persons came to see Srila Prabhupada, who is to come to see Srila Prabhupada from time to time. And they were very important person. One was actually the governor, ex-governor of Madras, and the other one was the head of a very big industry, Bajaj Industries, Bajaj Group of Industries. They make, anyway, so they came and they met Srila Prabhupada. We all were there in the room at that time. And so they said that they wanted to speak to Srila Prabhupada in private. Privately, they wanted to speak to Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada told us to leave the room. And while leaving the room, I pressed the recording button of the tape recorder. And that is how that discussion we could actually hear afterwards. And at some point, that person said the tape recorder is on. So then they noticed that the tape recorder was on, so the tape recorder was shut down. So those two persons actually came and asked Srila Prabhupada, who would be Prabhupada's successor? Who would Prabhupada appoint as his successor? Prabhupada's response to that was, I'm not going to appoint any successor. I give the legacy to all my followers. Whoever follows will have the legacy. And it is such a prophetic statement that actually indicates that Prabhupada is giving the responsibility of spreading this movement all over the world to all his loyal followers. Prabhupada didn't want to appoint anybody. Even when, let's go back to another step, there was a consideration who would be the next Acharya. Who would Prabhupada appoint as the next Acharya? Prabhupada's initial response to that was, my Guru Maharaj did not appoint an Acharya. How can I appoint an Acharya? It's an interesting thing to note. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur simply mentioned before he left the planet that how to collectively maintain and manage the institution through a governing body, through a GBC. And he didn't say a single word about who would be his spiritual successor or Acharya and so forth. And so Prabhupada's initial reaction was that. that Prabhupada didn't really want to. Prabhupada didn't want to appoint anyone as his successor. Rather, Prabhupada gave the responsibility to all his loyal followers, generation after generations. And that is how this movement is going to go on. Srila Prabhupada made it very, very clear to all of us. And sometimes the question actually arises, well, I mean, I'm just being very frank because I'm not speaking to a bunch of children. You all are grown up, thinking, committed, and intelligent individuals. Like the question sometimes arises, now what about this 11 uh, persons, 11 devotees that Prabhupada actually named? My response to that is that Prabhupada named them because Prabhupada saw that that is how he could actually avoid a major catastrophe after he left the planet. Because how can we consider that Srila Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, made some arrangement which did not succeed? How can Prabhupada's arrangement be a failure? So now the question, of course, arises, then what about the initiation system? Yes, initiation will go on. Initiation will go on, just as we have different other spiritual arrangements. Like we need pujaris to, to worship the deities. But for that, there is no need to make a uh, specific arrangement or specific uh, resolutions. Like, yes, we know that the pujaris are needed to continue the deity worship. Similarly, gurus will be needed, initiating gurus will be needed to give initiation. That will go on. But the important thing in this respect is that in this institution of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada is the guru. And that is why Srila Prabhupada gave so much emphasis on that, his title as the founder Acharya. Just consider what Srila Prabhupada emphatically told us, that wherever there is a name, ISKCON, his name, right there, his identity as the founder Acharya must be there. Now, there is no doubt that Srila Prabhupada is the founder of ISKCON. Nobody will ever question that. But what is actually the important consideration? The Acharya aspect of it. That is implying, practically etched in stone, that Srila Prabhupada is going to be the Acharya for the entire ISKCON, for all the devotees of ISKCON, for as long as ISKCON will be there. And that is Srila Prabhupada's position. And yes, the gurus will come, Shiksha gurus will come, Diksha gurus will come, but they will function as Srila Prabhupada's representatives in the institution that Srila Prabhupada established. Whenever we think of a spiritual institution, immediately comes the consideration of an ashram. A guru has his ashram. Now it is absolutely clear that ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada's ashram. And Srila Prabhupada did not hand over the ISKCON institution to anybody. Srila Prabhupada will always remain the spiritual head of the institution of ISKCON, and there will be many individuals functioning on behalf of Srila Prabhupada in the institution as representatives of Srila Prabhupada. In this respect, often I give one example, that I am giving initiation because ISKCON has authorized me to give initiation. If tomorrow ISKCON tells that I have to stop giving initiation, then I have to stop. Which clearly indicates that I am functioning as a representative of ISKCON on behalf of ISKCON. Like, it is not that Srila Prabhupada handed over the responsibility, or rather legacy, or the successorship of the institution to any individual or even a group of individual. It is that Prabhupada wanted that everybody in this institution should function as the representative of the institution where he is the founder Acharya. And in this respect, we can consider also, like sometimes a question comes up, like recently actually I was confronted with a question by one individual who thinks that the institutional religion is bad or is not desirable. Let's put it that way. So his question was, why do we need an institution? My answer to that was, when you start a small business, like when you open a shop, it's just a shop, you don't really register it as a company. But as you want to expand the business, then you form a company. Then the company takes a bigger shape. Private limited, then it goes public, public limited, I don't know how you call it in America. Like, and then if the institution becomes, I mean, if you want to expand the business throughout the other countries, then you make it a multinational corporation. So when you run a small business, you don't need any structure like that. But as the business grows, the larger it grows, the more definite becomes its structure. And Srila Prabhupada came with a vision to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. In that respect, we can consider that Srila Prabhupada was clearly seeing the future. We can recall Prabhupada's interaction with Mr. Rubin in Central Park in New York. I have many temples, farms, and Rubin said, you said you just came the other day. What are you talking about? Prabhupada said, yes, they are there. Only time is separating us. So that means Prabhupada was clearly seeing what's going to happen in future. Prabhupada knew what he came to accomplish. And that is why the moment he got a slight opportunity to establish his institution or start his institution, he starts off by establishing the institution or registering the institution, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Just see the name, a small little storefront, 26 Second Avenue. Prabhupada is calling the institution that he's starting there, he is calling it the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The lawyer there who was registering the company, he asked Prabhupada that really he could tolerate that international, okay, fine. He must have sounded quite funny, like a small little about 40 square foot area, not 40, about 400 square foot area, and a shop, small little shop, and he's calling it the International Society. Okay, fine, as long as you pay me the fees. But Krishna consciousness, he had the problem with that. Krishna consciousness. So he said, people don't understand what Krishna is. So you rather call it the International Society for God Consciousness. But Prabhupada's reaction to that was, no, I have come here to make everyone understand that Krishna is God. They know about God, but they do not know who is God. I have come here to make them understand. I have come here to teach them who God is. So this is how we can see how clear Srila Prabhupada's perception was. And that's why Srila Prabhupada actually, right at the beginning, Prabhupada set up the institution of ISKCON. And so the point here is, yes, we need an institution. We need an institution because otherwise the massive responsibility, the massive work of spreading this movement all over the world is not going to happen. That's why we need the institution. Proof. I want to justify my statement. During Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, his institution was an extremely successful institution. He also established an institution, Gauriya Math. I mean, innumerable number of very, very high class, educated, aristocratic, capable, successful individuals participated in his movement. It was a thriving movement. Can you imagine? At that time, in 1930s, he had 64 temples in India. 64 temples in India. Those days, communication was not that easy. Like, so that shows how successful his mission was. But his emphasis was that you maintain that institution. That's what he told his followers. But unfortunately, because his followers did not follow his instruction, the institution disintegrated. And when the institution disintegrated, preaching movement stopped. Preaching stopped. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave sannyas to 27 of his disciples. And not a single one of them fell down. Not a single one of his disciples, the sannyas disciples, fall down. They were carrying on, preaching, initiating, and so forth. But that preaching mission that he started stopped. So this is the proof that for this, in order to effectively spread Krishna consciousness, we need an institution. So the other part of that proof is, in ISKCON, after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, so many leading devotees had spiritual difficulties. So many devotees have left, but ISKCON is expanding, preaching is expanding worldwide. When Srila Prabhupada left the planet, there were about 108 temples, and now we have more than 650 temples worldwide. So that shows that this movement is thriving. The movement is expanding. Why? Although individually we may have our spiritual difficulties, but because the institution is intact, that's why the preaching mission is going on. Yeah, I'll take some water. So that is why we need the institution. Now the consideration is what Prabhupada told us. Protect ISKCON. Protect this movement. And in order to protect this movement, Srila Prabhupada's very clear instruction to us was, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate with each other. There lies the real secret, through our cooperation. Through our cooperation, this institution will remain intact. But in the structural consideration, to hold this institution together, we need two considerations, two aspects. One is the head of the institution. And we have to recognize that Srila Prabhupada is the head of this institution forever. As long as ISKCON will be there, Srila Prabhupada will always remain as the head of the institution. If we succeed, if we successfully do that, then yes, ISKCON will remain intact. And to continue the functioning and successful propagation of this movement, we need a collective concept of management, and that is the Governing Body Commission, GBC. And if we can keep these two aspects intact, ISKCON's future is safe. We can consider Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instruction was, you collectively manage the institution through a governing body, through a GBC. But they didn't understand the importance. Rather, his leading disciples considered, like, how can a spiritual organization be run by a group of managers? For a spiritual organization, we need a spiritual head. And they appointed a spiritual head. And when that spiritual head had spiritual difficulty, the structure collapsed. So here we have to understand that in order to hold the institution together, we need a concept of collective management. The advantage of collective management is when an individual deviates, no matter how powerful he may be, collectively he will be able to, collectively the institution will be deal with him. That we have seen in the past. GBC concept, the functioning of the GBC has protected ISKCON from this kind of crisis and calamity time and time again. Leading devotees had spiritual difficulties with their followers. They tried to create disturbance to the society, but because the GBC concept was there, the collective concept of management was there, no one individual was stronger than this collective body. And whatever this collective body decided, they had to accept it.